Hey everyone, meet Chisa. Her 3D model is essentially a free masterclass. A masterclass that reminds us that character design doesn't have to be overcomplicated to be amazing. And apparently the devs left some secrets in the publicly released free version of the model. A little more than, we're used to seeing. And don't worry, we'll get into that as we do a full breakdown and examination of her file in Blender. Now, in the world of anime gacha games, a criticism you might sometimes hear is that characters are over-designed. Increasingly complex outfits with endless clothing layers, embellishments, accessories, you name it. Now, on one hand, in these kinds of games, this level of design is somewhat necessary for a few reasons. The devs need to give the character perceived value worth pulling for by showing us that they did put effort into the creation process. They also do need to make sure that character is distinct from every other character ever made. On the other hand though, this can potentially lead to detail bloat and design creep. Now to be clear, extravagant designs are not necessarily a problem in themselves. But if a game's cast of characters all shares the same motif and level of detail, it risks lacking variety. If there is a lack of simple but strong designs to contrast the quote-unquote over-designed characters. Enter Chisa, who subverts that. Her design is a spin on the classic sailor uniform schoolgirl, and in my opinion, the execution is nothing short of masterful. She's proof that we don't always need to one-up the last design in terms of complexity, but we can go back and refine what's already tried and true. But make no mistake, that doesn't mean her design is plain or lazy by any means. You can see that there is still a high level of detail and care, but the details are clustered in small areas and sometimes partially occluded, rather than scattered across the entire outfit and needlessly filling up every inch of space. And notice that there are no huge logos, insignias, or out-of-place pieces that would steal the show. Just a cohesive design with a familiar silhouette that we know and love. Zooming in, the texture design subtly portrays the physical feeling of the material, and the baked-in shadows and clothing folds are intelligently done. Just take a look at how the staggered pleat lines and the simulated folds add depth to a flat mesh surface. In more defined fold areas, the mesh is carefully tailored to interact with the rim lighting, and everything together works quite well. The controlled palette of charcoal, navy, and crimson red avoid the usual gacha rainbow salad. The hairstyle is charming despite being pretty straightforward, thanks to the variation in the side bangs and the tie point above the right ear. The strand texturing gives life to an otherwise minimalistic mesh design, and those sleek, chopped ends look great, with the dual layering of front and back strands for depth. It's also a little surprising that her Techwear jacket doesn't seem out of place at all and fills out the overall design with its tags, buckles, and various small utilities. The breathing and blood circulation constrictors are admittedly a little cliche in the genre as a whole, but they're somewhat of a staple now when there's not a lot going on in those areas. Alright, fine, if it's related to the lore, I guess it's acceptable. Okay, now hold on a second. Someone's gotta explain something to your boy. See, usually when models go game ready, fully occluded areas that would never be seen because they're hidden under clothing will routinely be deleted to save poly count. However, in Chisa's case, there are a few intricacies that prevent this from happening. For example, she's wearing a skirt, so obviously you've got to model the undergarments underneath and even the underskirt, just in case people go in game and do something diabolical with the camera angle. Her top also does hang loosely a little off of her upper body, so you can kind of see under it, which means that yes, this part has to be left in as well. Fair enough. Same thing for the arm. If this coat didn't have these openings, then they could go ahead and actually delete the entire arm underneath, but because it does have these openings, they do have to be left in. Now conveniently, this makes Chisa a prime candidate if you needed a reference for, a female character that's a little more on the slimmer and flatter side, because most of her base model is actually still intact, and that is not the case for most characters. Now we look at her shoes, which are fully enclosed by the way, and the usual behavior for this, at least in Wuthering Waves, is of course they'll delete the feet underneath. But in my doom scroll session the other night, this short popped up, and I'm just gonna go ahead and play it. How to observe Chisa's feet. Did you know this? There's a robot in the region of Huang Long that can help us observe characters' feet in close-up detail. Most people use it to observe barefoot characters like the Shorekeeper or Carlotta, but for shoe-wearing characters like Frolova, there's nothing to see since they lack detailed foot modeling. Today, however, I made a special discovery about Chisa. If you zoom in on the right angle and look through her shoes, you can see she has fully modeled feet. And now we're gonna find out if that's actually in the downloaded model that we have today. By selecting everything and using my magical H button, we can see that yes, it is there. Her modeled foot with the socks over them. But is it fully modeled, as in are the toes under the socks and everything? Unfortunately, no. But, you know, close enough, and we'll take what we can get. I know that you know that we know what you're doing, Kuro Games. Looks like the Great Feet War rages on. Now clearly from a couple videos ago we can see that a lot of people like feet, myself included. But I'm not gonna lie, I might switch allegiances to become more of a hand guy. Look at Chisa's hands, man. This hand is actually slightly different from what I've seen in previous Wuthering Waves models, which hopefully means they're gradually evolving their models, but they could also just be using different approaches for different situations. But it's actually pretty nice to see that each character has its own special hands and feet models. But as you can see, this joint mechanism still flares out toward the bottom of the finger, the standard choice for Wuthering Waves models, but it does have a small twist compared to, let's say, Fleur de Lis on the bottom end. The other variation looks kind of like this, where the middle line just goes through straight. It doesn't split here in the middle like that. Practically, the difference is very minimal, but it is worth noting. One really cute thing about her hands, I don't know if you noticed, but this middle finger is slightly crooked. And I don't know, man, like, it's got me feeling some kind of way. I don't know how else to describe it. I didn't know that a finger being off by like 1 degree could make me feel this type of way. But anyways, more on this when I put out the hand tutorial, and that should be coming out soon before December hits. One unique detail I don't want to forget is her top eyelash design. This would usually go straight across, but they made it jagged to go along with every lash strand. This might be the first time I've seen someone use this specific detail in a 3D model. And while we're here, let's appreciate the iris painting and other eye details that contribute to this marvelous eye design. It all starts with an unreasonably high resolution for the iris, which is kind of nuts with how much lines you can see, but eyes are a crucial part of these characters. It's something to admire when it's up close, and it does keep a subtle effect even when zoomed out a little. Take note of the touches of blue, pink, and yellow to break up the monochromatic red in the iris, and it's even speckled a little on the liner itself. Lastly, I must commend the work done on her face, because this looks good from the front, from the profile view, and even the quarter angle. In fact, that face card is not declining anywhere across this entire rotation, and the silhouette of the nose and lips catch the rim light perfectly. This is hard to perfect, and I will say that it is not always done to this level when we're talking about all characters across all the gacha games, even within Wuthering Waves itself. It does not do this to this level all the time. But that goes without saying, the margins to take your model to this level of excellence is extremely small. Like, the tweaks are literally millimeters. And I would not be surprised if there were hours of tweaking involved just for this face. So hands down, Chisa is one of the most well-executed model designs I've seen from this particular game yet, and this year in general. So whoever let the person behind this design cook, please keep them in the kitchen. And to all viewers, thank you for watching this until the end, my goats. And by the way, on my channel, I do a lot of 3D model breakdowns of characters if you're new here, mostly from 3D anime style games for now, which you are always welcome to check out, as well as a new tutorial series in case you're interested in making your own masterpieces with techniques heavily inspired by and reverse engineered from the very models you see in these videos. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and have a good night. Bye bye.